Googling. Have you ever listened to a crazy person? Would you like to? Hi, my name's Oogling, and recently I've been thinking a lot about animal mutations. Mutations and adaptations are things that come with time in animals. However, there is one exception, this being Chernobyl, the radiation zone. Animals within this range have begun adaptation at a high rate to fight against the radiation, and they've been forever altered. And on the topic of forever altered, I would like to bring up something everyone has been dissing on, that being the newest Minecraft update, which brought the Sulfur Cube to the game. These little guys are my favorite addition so far, just because they can create cool minigames. To me, Sulfur Cubes kind of look like slimes, just recolored, which got me started on this whole question in the first place. And today, we will answer it. Could the Sulfur Cube survive in Chernobyl? For those who have forgotten, the Sulfur Cube's whole purpose is to carry objects within itself. This is mostly used for mini-games, but we can imagine it could also be used as a survival tactic, allowing animals to store things. More on that later. While they have a block in them, they cannot be damaged or killed.
Nice throw!
Unless damaged by fire or poison. Another interesting thing to mention is they split into two miniature Sulfur Cubes on death, which is a form of regeneration or fragmentation. Besides looking like a slime with a derpy face, it does not attack or defend itself in any way, making it pretty easy to take out, which again, more on that later. For our first challenge, how would the Sulfur Cube survive the radiation of Chernobyl? Radiation comes in three types, alpha, beta, and gamma. While I'm sure we all have heard Discord mods call themselves the first two, the terms might need to be refreshed. Alpha radiation is the least dangerous, while gamma is the most dangerous. Alpha radiation is all over the soil and ground of Chernobyl, which gets into grass and plants, which are then eaten by animals, and those animals are eaten by others, and the cycle continues. This allows for radiation to become more than just an outside force, where all animals born in Chernobyl are all already carrying radiation within them. Now, if you remember, Sulfur Cubes don't consume anything other than blocks, and those are just temporary, meaning they most likely wouldn't have long-term effects like consuming radioactive food would. This means they already have a large advantage over other critters that do actually eat and drink. But there is one bigger thing: breeding. As I mentioned before, Sulfur Cubes don't breed, but instead practice fragmentation, which would mean radiation would be split between the two Sulfur Cubes, making its harmful effects less effective. To finally make radiation the least of our worries, I present the two solutions that every animal in Chernobyl has already been practicing: natural selection and adaptation. I personally wouldn't partake in this exercise, but if it's good enough for them, so be it. We could see Sulfur Cubes adapt to change the part of their DNA that is capable of restoring or healing cells to increase their production. This would allow Sulfur Cubes to regenerate the part affected by radiation. If a Sulfur Cube somehow gained a tumor from the side effects of the radiation, they could split into two, leaving one to continue its path of glory. One last thing to mention, in the sulfur caves, there is already potent sulfur, which releases gas that makes you nauseous. These blocks of potent sulfur eventually erupt, which form geysers. The only thing I have to note about this is their nauseous effect seems to have no effect on the Sulfur Cubes already, which most likely points to them already adapting to it, proving they can overcome these kinds of obstacles. Now, back to the big picture, we need to look at Sulfur Cube's attack and defense, which doesn't exist. Unlike their swamp and nether counterparts, they don't really fight back or even do anything other than jump around aimlessly. Even though they don't have much going on for them in that department, I think that they still do have a chance at survival, mostly through mutualism, a relationship in which both parties benefit if protected by the other. We already know that Sulfur Cubes can store blocks inside of themselves, which makes them temporarily invulnerable. But what if they expanded what they could hold inside of them to please other, more hostile animals? They could be used as movable storage for food, and in exchange would be protected by the animals using them for storage. I mean, sulfur itself can be consumed, and isn't extremely poisonous in small amounts. When taking blocks out of the Sulfur Cube, they don't come out dripping in sulfur, which to me means it is possible for them to store things such as food within them. With this being said, I think that most animals would form a bond between the Sulfur Cubes. So far, we only have two ways the Sulfur Cube could defend itself, by absorbing a block, which makes it invulnerable but immobile, or by building a bond with surrounding wildlife. But what if I told you there's another third, more nuclear option? See what I did there? This would have the sulfur cube absorb something radioactive itself, so animals would become sick after attempting to eat or disturb it. One example of this we could see is the elephant's foot in Chernobyl, which is the most radioactive object within the entire area. The elephant foot is a large lava mass which was created from molten uranium fuel, molten steel, concrete, and sand, nicknamed the elephant's foot, well, because it looks like an elephant's foot. The lethal dose of radiation to a human is around 200 to 400 roentgen. When the elephant's foot was first discovered, it was emitting upwards to 10,000. Just for scientists to obtain samples of the foot, they were forced to use AK rounds to chip some of it off. While most organisms would die from just being close to this mass, there is a moss that lives and feeds off of the radiation of the foot. We could possibly see sulfur cubes adapt to the point where they could do the very same, but instead of being immobile, they could potentially move the elephant's foot and use it as a core or energy source, feeding off of it just as the moss. This is more of a long shot, but there is a chance the sulfur cube could do what it is meant to do, and absorb the most radioactive object achievable in Chernobyl. Running with this, we could see the sulfur cube very slowly slide its way through and out of Chernobyl over time, killing everything in its path, and eventually greeting humanity with its radiation. Most animals that wander outside of Chernobyl are shot on sight to contain radiation, but sulfur cubes that absorb something, in this case the elephant's foot, would be immune to the bullets just as they are immune to bows and arrows in Minecraft. This would eventually just lead to us bombing it, but by that point it would have already done irreversible damage. As for surviving in just Chernobyl alone, I believe the sulfur cube has a pretty good shot at being integrated into the wildlife society we know as Radiation Station, or Chernobyl. The main components that would be their saving grace would be their ability to split on death and their ability to adapt, just as every other animal has. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.